Title: The Landlord, the Tenant, and the Crumbling House of Cards. The air in the television courtroom was thick with the tension you could almost touch. A silent battle of wills, about to be refereed by the one woman whose sharp gaze could dissect a lie from a mile away, Judge Judy. On one side of this legal battlefield sat the plaintiff, a man named Mr. Bruno, a landlord whose calm demeanor belied the storm of accusation he was about to unleash. Opposite him was the defendant, Ms. Brewer, a woman who had once called his property home, her face a careful mask of apprehension, knowing her family's character and their care of a house they had loved for half a decade was about to be put on trial. The case seemed simple on its surface, a dispute over damages, over dirt and disrepair. But as the first words were spoken, it became a deep and unsettling exploration of responsibility, neglect, and the very soul of a house that had been forgotten by time. This wasn't just about a security deposit. This was a story of a home that had witnessed the slow decay of age and the vibrant chaos of a growing family. A story that would ultimately reveal who the true victim was in a transaction where the walls themselves were crying out for care. Judge Judy began, her voice cutting through the silence with practiced precision, a scalpel ready to operate on the facts. Mr. Bruno, the defendant was the tenant in a home that you owned for 5 years. She established the timeline, the framework of this 5-year relationship that was now ending in acrimony. Mr. Bruno, composed but with a slight nervousness in his eyes, confirmed the tenancy of Ms. Brewer and her family, her husband, Gary, and their 3 children, who were just 10, 8, and 12 years old when they first stepped through the door, their young lives about to be lived out within those aging walls. The judge, a master architect of context, then began to build the history of the property itself, brick by brick. "When did you purchase this house?" she inquired, and Mr. Bruno explained it was about 3 years before the Brewer family moved in, a house he had acquired from the relative of an elderly woman who had passed away. A quiet deal struck across the street. The picture was starting to form. An old house, once a grandmother's quiet sanctuary, now an investment property. With the skill of a detective, Judge Judy dug deeper, peeling back the layers of time. "Did you ever live in the house?" The answer was a simple no. It was never a home to him. It was always an asset. She traced the occupants from the time of his purchase. First a young couple, then a rotation of college students, and finally the Brewer family. Then came the critical question, the one that would become the central pillar of the entire case. "Can you produce any bills for me of any renovations that were made prior to the defendant moving into the house?" The answer from Mr. Bruno was a damning no. Not before the young couple, not before the students, not before the Brewers. The only thing he had done, the only concession to upkeep, was a cosmetic paint job on the outside. The truth was laid bare for everyone to see, from the moment Mr. Bruno took ownership until the day the Brewers left. The house's guts, its ancient kitchen, its tired bathrooms, its very bones, had remained frozen in time, untouched and unimproved, for well over a decade since the elderly lady had last called it her own. The heart of Mr. Bruno's complaint was now laid before the court. He was claiming that after 5 years of tenancy, Ms. Brewer and her family had caused a great deal of damage so severe that he felt justified in keeping her $950 security deposit and seeking further compensation. He presented his evidence, a series of photographs meant to showcase the devastation. But Judge Judy, with her legendary no-nonsense clarity, saw not willful destruction, but the sad, inevitable story of an old, neglected building. She held up a picture. "What is this a picture of?" she asked. "Pantry," he replied, but her eyes saw something else. Not malice, but age, she inquired about the oven, a relic that looked like it belonged in a museum. And Mr. Bruno admitted it had been so filthy, it took a great effort to clean, but he had not replaced it. He showed a picture of a storage room door, its bottom rotten and splintered. Judge Judy's voice was laced with incredulity as she pointed out the obvious. "I'd like you to tell me what the bottom of that door looks like, sir. Tell me what damage do you think a person did to that door, as opposed to years of neglect." This was not the result of a single angry kick. This was the slow, sad surrender of wood to time, to moisture, to the simple grinding force of entropy that Mr. Bruno had chosen to ignore. The confrontation escalated, the atmosphere in the room growing electric. Mr. Bruno tried to defend his position, but the judge was a force of nature, her logic an unstoppable tide. When he showed a picture of a damaged air conditioning unit, suggesting it had been punctured, Judge Judy countered with a simple, devastating alternative: or rats. She was systematically dismantling his case, showing that every alleged act of damage could just as easily be explained by the property's advanced age and his own profound neglect. The financial reality was then laid bare. Judge Judy uncovered that Mr. Bruno had a mortgage on the property, paying $1,400 a month, while the brewer's rent started at $950 and was only raised in small increments. "Then how do you expect to be in business?" she demanded, her question hanging in the air, exposing the shaky foundation of his investment strategy. He admitted he was banking on the property value increasing, hoping to sell it for a profit later. It was a gamble, and the house itself was the chip he was willing to let deteriorate. The climax of the trial was a masterclass in judicial reasoning and a stark moral reckoning. Judge Judy looked at Mr. Bruno, her expression a mixture of disappointment and blunt truth. "I don't find anything here, sir, egregious. I don't find anything here more egregious than normal wear and tear with 5 adults living in a house that hasn't been cared for in well over a decade." She acknowledged that she is usually a fierce protector of landlords against destructive tenants, but in this case, she saw a different truth. "You're using this property as a cash cow," she declared, her words echoing. "You're doing no renovations in it at all." She painted a vivid picture of his choices. The ancient stove he refused to replace, the crumbling door he merely patched, the sheer lack of pride or basic responsibility he had shown for the building he owned. He wanted the Brewers to return the house in the same condition they found it, but Judge Judy exposed the flaw in that argument. The beautiful pictures he provided from a Craigslist ad were not necessarily from when the Brewers moved in, and even if they were, they depicted a house that was already old, already worn, already crying out for the kind of investment a responsible owner should provide. In the end, the gavel of justice fell with finality. "Mr. Bruno, let me explain something to you," Judge Judy said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "I'm not giving you any more money." She delivered her verdict like a closing chapter. He had a house that had been allowed to grow old for a decade. He had done absolutely nothing in it. He had a paying tenant, MS Brewer, who had fulfilled her financial duty for 5 long years without complaint. He had already kept her security deposit for a cleanup that was, in the judge's eyes, nothing more than the standard turnover required for any rental, especially one so decrepit. "You want a nice sparkling house," she concluded, her advice as practical as it was pointed. "I suggest that you take care of it. Your case is dismissed. We're done." And with that, the battle was over. Miss Brewer felt a wave of relief and vindication wash over her, while Mr. Bruno was left with the stark reality that his quest for easy money had been thwarted by the simple, powerful truth that ownership requires more than just collecting rent. It demands care, responsibility, and a fundamental respect for the property itself and the people who live within its walls. Lesson for the listeners and viewers: The story of Mr. Bruno and Mimes Brewer serves as a powerful lesson for both landlords and tenants. For landlords, this case is a stark reminder that property ownership is a serious responsibility, not a passive lottery ticket. A house is a physical structure that requires ongoing maintenance, investment, and care. You cannot expect to extract value from a property while putting nothing back into it, and then blame your tenants for the visible effects of time and your own neglect. Normal wear and tear is the legal and natural consequence of people living in a home, and trying to charge tenants for the aging of an asset you have allowed to deteriorate is not only unfair but, as seen here, unlikely to succeed in a court of law. For tenants, this story underscores the critical importance of documentation. Always take detailed, dated photographs and videos of a rental property the day you move in and the day you move out. This evidence is your strongest shield against unfounded claims for pre-existing issues or for damages that are simply the result of the property's age. Ultimately, this case teaches us that fairness and responsibility are the cornerstones of any contractual relationship. A home is more than just a transaction. It's a shared space where the obligations of both parties must be met with honesty and integrity.